Lucian shot awake in his classroom, heart pounding. His vision blurred, and mocking laughter flooded his ears. His classmates jeered, and even the teacher glared at him as if he were worthless. With a sharp, demeaning tone, the instructor pointed at him and said that no company would ever accept Lucian as even a bricklayer. The lowest acceptable blood energy threshold for that job was 0.8, and Lucian was hopelessly below that. Class eventually ended. Ming, his only friend, approached him with concern. Ming suggested they go to the internet cafe together, offering to treat him to snacks and games to cheer him up. Lucian refused. The recurring nightmare had drained him more than he could admit. He still could not accept what fate had thrown at him. He had once been a hard-working student preparing for his university exams in his original world. After being dragged into this new reality, the exam he faced now was survival itself. This world was eerily similar to his own, except for one major difference. Martial arts here were beyond anything he had ever seen. As Lucian stared at a colossal screen broadcasting the triumphant 8th Legion defeating another monster invasion, his attention shifted. Across the street, a courier carried a mountain of parcels like they weighed nothing. Strength like that was common here. The sight sparked jealousy inside him. Evening light settled over the city as Lucian returned to his small apartment. Inside, his mother pressed medicinal patches onto his father's aching back. Despite the pain, both parents greeted him with warm smiles. His father hurried to stand straight, pretending to be stronger than he was, but the bandages told the truth. Lucian gently suggested that his father buy an acupuncture device to ease the pain. His father just flexed his arm proudly and joked that he was built like iron and needed no help. Then his father pulled out 2 small containers containing rare supplements. They cost $20,000. For a family barely scraping by, it was a fortune. Lucian's chest tightened. He held back tears, biting his lip so he would not cry. His parents asked whether his blood energy level had reached 0.85 yet. Panic shot through Lucian. Without answering, he dashed into his room. There was no time to waste. With fierce resolve, he began the body-strengthening routine. This training method combined martial discipline, advanced breathing techniques, and ancient movement arts. It was designed to build a foundation that could eventually unlock superhuman strength. His mind drifted to history. 3 centuries ago, monsters burst forth from cracks in the sky and erupted through the earth. Traditional weapons failed miserably. Human genes mutated, unlocking terrifying powers and creating a world ruled by martial arts. Still, humanity struggled. Entire cities were destroyed, and the population barely clung to existence. After forcing himself through 3 rounds of intense training, Lucian's limbs felt like lead. His blood energy didn't rise at all. Sweat drenched him, breath ragged. His heart ached with frustration, but he refused to give up. His family had sacrificed everything for his future. He pushed to stand, but the room spun wildly. Darkness overtook him, and he collapsed. When he opened his eyes again, he was not home. He was back in that desolate nightmare world. He tried to force himself awake, but nothing changed. A rotting monster hurtled toward him, jaws open wide. Every other night, he had run in terror from this creature. Not this time. Something primal surged within him. He roared from deep inside, driving all his strength into his legs as he kicked the zombie away with brutal force. Lucian grabbed a jagged rock and hammered down without hesitation. Each strike was fueled by fear, anger, and desperation. He kept going until the monster finally collapsed into a pool of thick black liquid that crept toward him. The thick black sludge crept toward Lucian, and as he stared at it, a storm of unfamiliar memories flooded into his mind. They were sharp, chaotic, and overwhelming. He saw a man he didn't know walking on a beach, telling a friend about his dream of joining an elite defense squad. Then he watched that same man wear a military uniform and train harshly at Base 1359. The memories shifted violently. The base was suddenly attacked, monstrous beings tearing through the defenses while chaos spread everywhere. Lucian's heart pounded. He realized these memories belonged to the very zombies he had defeated. His hand shook while he tried to make sense of this strange connection, unaware that a powerful aura was building around him. A shadow lunged from behind. Instinct took over. Lucian turned smoothly and snapped the creature's neck in one flawless motion. The corpse crumpled and melted into black fluid. At that moment, a surge of energy raced through Lucian's body. He understood the truth. Not only could he inherit the memories of those he struck down, he could absorb their abilities as well. Lucian tried to calm his breathing. He reminded himself that he was inside a dream. Still, he could not shake the certainty that something important was hidden here. The memory of Base 1359 returned, gnawing at him as if urging him to uncover its secrets. Everything twisted again. The dream dissolved. He opened his eyes to the real world. His younger sister was calling him to dinner. She paused, noticing how sweat clung to him and how defined his muscles had become beneath his shirt. A soft blush tinted her cheeks before she hurried away awkwardly. Lucian smiled faintly. They had been close once, almost inseparable, but things changed after her first evaluation revealed an extraordinary talent, a blood energy reading of 1 and a battle strength of 100. She was destined for greatness. He took a moment to examine himself in the mirror. His physique looked sharp, refined, strong. He felt no exhaustion. Every ability and memory from the dream remained with him. Could the power of those dreams exist in reality? Setting those thoughts aside, he joined his family at the table. He ate fiercely, bowl after bowl, as if a bottomless pit had replaced his stomach. When he finally hesitated, embarrassed by his appetite, his father happily shoved the empty bowl forward, shouting for more food. Even his sister smiled. After dinner, Lucian made his way to the city's martial arts academy. The instructor there was a level 4 martial artist, highly respected. The ranks of martial artists were clearly defined. Level 1 required a blood energy of 1.5 and battle strength of 150. Level 2 required 15 blood energy and 1,500 battle strength. Level 3 required 100 blood energy and 10,000 battle strength. Level 4 surpassed even 200 blood energy and 100,000 battle strength. Lucian approached the reception and requested a strength and energy evaluation. Though the receptionist clearly doubted his background, she remained polite. In the testing room, Lucian rested his palm on a crystal measuring device. The number shocked him, 0.963. He had jumped massively from his previous 0.7 score. He then turned toward the combat tester. Drawing upon the techniques he learned from the memories of the fallen soldiers, he unleashed a crisp strike. The screen flashed, 113 battle strength. In just a single hour, his improvement was unbelievable. He wondered what would happen if he spent 10 full hours inside that dream realm. Later, Lucian lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to sleep. He counted far too many imaginary sheep, but his mind refused rest. Irritated, he stood up, switched on the light, and resumed training. As he prepared to perform the basic strengthening routine, his body began to move in unfamiliar yet precise ways. The soldier's knowledge guided his motions. More than 200 new techniques surfaced from his memory. Each movement made his power grow. Even his breathing technique evolved, turning each inhale into a source of tremendous progress. A single session felt like a year of training. Lucian stood there stunned, realizing his potential had just begun to awaken. After finishing the entire technique, Lucian felt as if his very soul was being torn from his body. An unbearable hunger gnawed at him, and his skin seemed to dry out as though all the moisture had been sucked away. He quickly realized that ordinary food wouldn't restore him. Only high-quality supplements could sustain his new strength. Yet the cost of those supplements was staggering, and he knew he'd have to find a way to earn money to keep advancing. The following morning, Lucian stood inside the school gym, ready for the combat class. Their instructor, Mr. Zhang, was a level 2 martial artist who carried the visible marks of someone who had once fought a monster and survived. Still, as Lucian watched the demonstration, he couldn't shake the feeling that the moves were too basic, nothing compared to the refined and powerful techniques he had mastered within his dreams. When Mr. Zhang concluded his display, he called forward one of the school's most admired students, Yang, for a sparring session. Yang was the model student, handsome, talented, and from a family with deep pockets. He had become somewhat of a supplement expert, and thanks to his family's wealth, his blood energy level had climbed to an impressive 1.2. After the spar, Mr. Zhang praised Yang's movements, promising to provide detailed feedback later. Yang nodded, but inside, he smirked at the teacher's words, finding them unnecessary. Mr. Zhang then looked around and asked the class if anyone else was willing to spar spar with Yang. No one met his gaze. The silence grew awkward until Mr. Zhang's eyes landed on Lucian, who stared back with a calm but intimidating look. The aura around him was unlike anything Yang had seen before. It carried the weight of someone who had looked death in the eye. Ming, Lucian's close friend, whispered nervously, urging him to sit this one out before he got seriously hurt. Lucian only smiled and assured him there was nothing to fear. Yang lifted his hand arrogantly, sneering, "You'd better keep away from my hand, or it'll break you." Lucian thanked him politely for the warning, replying that he was ready whenever Yang was. The moment the match began, Yang lunged forward, trying to finish it with a single blow. To everyone's shock, Lucian sidestepped effortlessly and countered with a clean strike to Yang's face, sending him flying across the gym floor. Mr. Zhang rushed over to check on Yang, while the rest of the students stood frozen in disbelief. None of them could comprehend how the class's strongest student had been defeated in one hit. Yang was soon carried out on a stretcher, leaving behind a room full of stunned faces. Lucian felt guilty about what had happened and quickly apologized to Mr. Zhang. The instructor stayed silent for a long moment before resting a hand on Lucian's shoulder. He then asked Lucian to follow him to his office. Inside the office, there wasn't much, just a potted plant and a machine used to test battle strength. Mr. Zhang's expression hardened. He demanded to know whether Lucian had used any banned enhancers or drugs, reminding him that such substances were strictly prohibited because of their severe side effects. Lucian calmly placed his hand on the crystal ball. The room filled with a faint electric hum as the readings appeared. His blood energy level was 1.532, classifying him as a level 1 martial artist. Mr. Zhang was speechless. The word prodigy didn't seem enough to describe the boy standing before him. At only 18, Lucian had already reached a level most students couldn't even dream of. As the teacher tried to process it, a loud noise snapped him out of his thoughts. The testing machine had shattered, and his favorite potted plant was destroyed in the process. Though he mourned the plant's loss, he couldn't help but marvel at Lucian's raw power. After a stunned pause, Mr. Zhang asked when Lucian had last checked his energy level. When he heard that it had been just 2 weeks ago and was only 0.8 at the time, he leapt up in disbelief. The improvement was almost unreal. Curious, he asked if Lucian came from a famous martial family or had been trained by a grandmaster. Lucian shook his head and told him he was self-taught, with no background or mentor to rely on. The teacher grew thoughtful, recalling his own journey. He had once reached level 2 after serving in the army, where he had learned firsthand how powerless ordinary humans were against the monsters. Only those with overwhelming strength could stand against such creatures, and Lucian seemed to be one of them. Taking a deep breath, Mr. Zhang suggested transferring Lucian to the elite class, where he'd receive top-tier instruction and resources. Lucian declined politely, explaining that nothing the school could offer would compare to the power he could pursue in his own way. Mr. Zhang, still determined, spoke with a near-dramatic conviction, promising that the school would support him no matter what. Lucian, wary of empty promises, agreed on 2 conditions: a scholarship to cover his expenses and the freedom to attend classes as he saw fit. Mr. Zhang seemed to understand Lucian's inner struggle, yet he quickly gathered himself and gave a wise nod. He realized that processing a scholarship would take time, so he decided to act on his own. With a smooth motion, he pulled out his bank card and handed it to Lucian. "Pay me back whenever you can," he said calmly. Lucian froze, surprised by such unexpected kindness. As he stepped out of Mr. Zhang's office, his pulse quickened. The idea of meeting another prodigy, a martial artist with level 2 battle strength at only 18, filled him with a mix of excitement and unease. To think someone his age could already possess such power was astonishing. Mr. Zhang saw this student as more than just a competitor. He viewed him as a hidden ace, someone capable of shocking every rival school during the upcoming examinations. Yet deep down, the teacher's vision extended further than mere academic glory. He often spoke of a certain place, an elusive sanctuary of martial arts, a sacred ground that had remained beyond reach for countless years. Meanwhile, Lucian found himself standing before the gates of Renshin Pharmacy. Watching a mother buy buy costly supplements for her daughter, he couldn't suppress a pang of envy. The truth was bitter. In the martial arts world, wealth often carved the path to success. He was painfully aware of his limitations. His mind drifted to his younger sister, still trapped in poverty alongside their struggling family. At that moment, Lucian felt like a fish confined within a small tank, longing for the open ocean, yet reluctant to leave the familiar waters he'd always known. Still, something within him shifted. Determination sparked in his chest, as though he had just broken through an invisible barrier holding him back. His memories, techniques, and battle instincts felt sharper and clearer than ever, fully merging into his own skill set. With this new clarity, Lucian walked the bustling city streets, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Pride and purpose coursed through him. He bought an acupuncture machine for his father, nutritional supplements for his sister, and groceries for his mother. That night, in his dream realm, Lucian moved like a seasoned fighter. He cut through the air, striking down a zombie in one clean motion. Every memory he absorbed brought him closer to his next destination, Base 1359. He fought through endless waves of the undead until he finally reached the fortress itself. The base's walls were immense, at least 20 meters thick, and Lucian couldn't help but wonder what sort of force could ever breach them. Despite its advanced civilization and martial expertise, this world still lived in fear of the monsters beyond. If even such a society was vulnerable, what hope did his own world have? Inside the base's fortified city, Lucian's attention was caught by a massive building that clearly served as the command center. Through its windows, he glimpsed a man in white, his expression cold and his left arm missing. Suddenly, a suffocating wave of killing intent crashed over Lucian. The air itself seemed to tremble with it. Instinct screamed for him to retreat. Keeping his eyes sharp and his breathing steady, Lucian backed away carefully, scanning his surroundings for danger. His steps eventually led him into a chamber unlike any he had seen before. At the center stood a machine. Curious, Lucian reached out and placed his hand on it. Instantly, it activated with a soft mechanical hum. A holographic projection flickered into view, a woman's image, lifelike yet artificial. Lucian was startled when the figure spoke fluently in his language. The AI introduced herself as AI-16, a 16th-generation support intelligence created by Tianhang Tech, responsible for managing the network systems of Base 1359. Intrigued, Lucian requested to see the latest news. He wondered what secrets this long-lost world might still hold. Without hesitation, the AI's holographic form glowed brighter, and countless screens materialized in the air around him, each filled with reports from across the galaxy. The first tab displayed a triumphant update. In June, Martial Year 11024, Base 1359 had successfully launched its 58th exploration vessel in search of habitable planets. The next report, however, was grim. In July, Base 105 had fallen. Despite their advanced technology and martial skill, humanity remained fragile before the threat of monsters. The third tab left Lucian stunned. It announced that General Sun Kang had officially become the 472nd level 10 martial artist. Lucian was amazed. He hadn't imagined that so many warriors had reached such a formidable level. Yet, even with all that power, humanity had still failed to defend its own planet and had been forced to abandon it entirely. As the reality of it sank in, a deep sadness filled Lucian's chest. The human race, wiped out. No new signals, no transmissions from their exploration fleet. Their extinction was absolute. It was a sobering reminder of how fleeting even the strongest civilizations could be. As streams of data began to surge before him, Lucian found himself sinking deeper into the echoes of the planet's ancient past. With every passing moment, his astonishment only grew. The sequence of events unfolding on the holographic display mirrored the history of his own world in uncanny detail. Monstrous outbreaks spreading across the globe, the rise of the first martial artist infused with inner power in the 34th martial year, and the eventual founding of the Martial Arts Association. Every revelation sent a chill through Lucian's mind. It slowly dawned on him. What he was witnessing wasn't some some alternate world, but a terrifying glimpse of his own planet's destiny thousands of years into the future. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he struggled to digest the magnitude of what he'd just learned. Yet, even faced with such grim truth, Lucian refused to despair. Maybe it was a coincidence, or another timeline, he told himself, forcing his racing thoughts into order. With renewed determination, he shifted his focus toward uncovering more. He commanded the AI, search for information on me and my family, but hope quickly turned to disappointment. The record showed that Lucian himself had died young, at just 28 years old in the martial year 325. His curiosity deepened into urgency, and he requested data about his younger sister. To his surprise, the system locked him out, demanding proof of genetic identity before granting access. Lucian frowned, unsure how to provide such proof. Before he could ponder further, I floated closer and, without hesitation, bit his finger. A small drop of blood was drawn. Lucian blinked in shock at the AI's spontaneous action. Seriously, you bite now? He muttered, half amazed, half unnerved. The future truly was a wild and unpredictable era. Even artificial intelligence had developed such eccentric behavior. Moments later, I's expression changed, and a series of red digital windows flickered to life. Lucian's heartbeat quickened. Before he could utter a word, his personal record refreshed before his eyes. It stated that he had once been a level 4 martial artist, a top graduate from White River Academy, and later a proud alumnus of White River Martial University. After graduation, he joined the army, serving courageously until his death at the age of 37 in the martial year 334. He stared at the data, stunned. So this is what I became. He had always seen himself as exceptional, a destined prodigy, but this record painted a humbler truth. He had been just one among many, a fleeting name in the grand march of time, not even a ripple left behind. Still, Lucian's analytical eye caught discrepancies. His exam results were listed as merely respectable, good, but far from legendary. He frowned. If I had used my Dream Realm's abilities, my scores would have been off the charts. Dissatisfaction sparked within him. Mediocrity was something Lucian could never accept. Deep down, he carried an unshakable conviction. He was born to transcend limits, to become the force that could reshape destiny itself. The next morning, he explained to his mother that he would continue studying from home and no longer needed to attend regular classes. His mother and younger sister exchanged doubtful glances, their faces showing skepticism. After breakfast, Lucian quietly returned to his room to train. His sister, Liu Qing, lingered at the door, watching him. Something about him felt different, deeper, sharper, mysterious in a way she couldn't describe. Inside, Lucian sat cross-legged, recalling the overwhelming visions from his dream realm. Time, he knew, was no longer his ally. Every second mattered. To change the future, he had to rise quickly, to climb to the very summit of strength. Back in the dream realm, Lucian issued another command to I. Bring up every textbook, manual, and technique related to martial arts, he said. Soon, data streamed across his vision. To narrow it down, he filtered only the methods suited to his current level. After careful selection, 3 manuals stood out, each authored by a level 11 martial artist: the stellar body enhancement technique, the natural breathing method, and the crystal meditation formula. All 3 belonged to something called the Spark program. It was as though a curtain had been lifted, exposing the hidden wisdom of the ancient martial arts world. These masters, foreseeing the downfall of civilization, had sealed away their knowledge, entrusting it to the future. Lucian wasted no time. He immersed himself in study. The stellar body enhancement method viewed the body as a miniature universe, each cell a blazing star, each muscle a vessel of cosmic strength. The natural breathing method taught its user to draw energy from nature itself, blending with elemental forces to enhance physical might. The crystal meditation method, on the other hand, trained the mind, forging resilience, clarity, and control under pressure, making long hours of training sustainable. When Lucian woke from his dream, he immediately noticed a change. His body felt lighter, purer. The techniques had cleansed him, flushing toxins from his system. Driven by newfound clarity, Lucian began formulating a plan to create his own enhancement supplements. The next day, he arrived at White River Academy. Mr. John greeted him warmly but reminded, "Lucian, remember, you must still attend at least one class a week." Lucian nodded with a smile before heading straight toward the pharmacy building, determined to rent a private room for his experiments. Rejection followed rejection, yet Lucian's persistence burned brighter with each setback. Eventually, Mr. Zhong noticed the fire in his eyes. With a thoughtful smile, he personally offered financial support, 50,000 credits, ensuring Lucian had the means to pursue his work. Lucian accepted with gratitude, silently vowing to repay the kindness someday. When it seemed no available room remained, fate intervened. Lucian stumbled upon a quiet, half-deserted pharmacy. The cashier was engrossed in a live stream, barely glancing up. He muttered dismissively, "Take whatever you need." Lucian, seizing the opportunity, managed to win the man's attention with a few clever words and a subtle bribe. In return, the cashier granted him a private room for 3 hours. Wearing a white lab coat, Lucian stepped inside. His eyes gleamed with focus as he began to work, mixing, refining, measuring, using every ounce of precision he possessed. He recalled techniques and ideas from shows like Rick and Morty and Full Metal Alchemist, blending science and alchemy into one seamless act. At last, he held the result of his labor in his hands, a gleaming vial filled with the fruits of knowledge spanning 10,000 years into the future. His ultimate supplement, powerful, refined, and utterly unique. Lucian Baldi carefully lifted the strange supplement to his lips, anticipation flickering in his eyes. He swallowed the liquid in one swift gulp, waiting for the promised surge of energy. Yet, to his dismay, nothing happened. He wondered bitterly, was this just another useless potion? Then, without warning, a fierce tremor tore through his chest. The shock was so violent that it sent him sprawling to the floor, writhing in unbearable pain. His body jerked uncontrollably as cries escaped his lips, veins standing out sharply along his neck. For what felt like endless minutes, Lucian could do nothing but endure the torment raging inside him. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the agony faded. He lay there drenched in sweat, chest heaving. Despite the scorching pain he had endured, Lucian's astonishment quickly replaced his fear. The supplement had worked beyond belief. His blood energy pulsed with renewed vigor, and his skin glowed with an almost ethereal brilliance. But before he could gather his thoughts, a rapid knock rattled the door. The cashier burst in, his expression tense. "You have to leave now," he whispered urgently. "The owner's back. Go through the rear door." Lucian didn't hesitate. He bolted for the back exit, vanishing just as the lab door swung open. The owner entered, her face tight with fury and disappointment. She knew the supplement trade was brutal and merciless. But this was a new level of betrayal. Her thoughts turned bitterly toward her family, whose rigid ways and refusal to innovate had driven their business into ruin. Only those who adapt survive in this world, she reminded herself coldly. In the corner, the cashier fidgeted nervously. He stammered, Good afternoon, ma'am." Her gaze fell to the stains on her pristine lab coat, and her eyes narrowed into slits. She demanded, her voice sharp as steel, "Did you let someone into my lab?" The young man faltered, words tumbling out incoherently. The owner's patience snapped. With a snarl of frustration, she dismissed him on the spot. As she began cleaning the lab, her eyes caught the small, spilled remnants of the supplement. Curiosity overcame her anger. She dipped a finger into the scattered droplets, then froze in shock. Even a single drop radiated immense potency. Without a second thought, she stormed out of the shop, sprinting after the cashier. The young man turned at the sound of her footsteps, only to be struck speechless by the sight of her rushing toward him, her graceful figure and flowing hair dazzling in the afternoon light. For a fleeting moment, he imagined a ridiculous fantasy. Perhaps fate had finally granted him the chance to earn her favor, even form his own little harem. His daydream shattered instantly as the owner grabbed him by the collar, her glare fierce and commanding. She barked, "Who used my lab?" Her grip was so strong that he swayed under the pressure. He stuttered, I don't know, but I can call him." Her eyes gleamed and said, "Do that, and I'll double your pay." Hands trembling, the cashier offered her his phone. The owner's pulse raced with excitement. This supplement wasn't just impressive, it was revolutionary. It performed at least 10 times better than anything on the market, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yet, its ingredients were so basic, its production cost would barely reach $5,000. Meanwhile, Lucian had just finished another grueling training session when his phone buzzed unexpectedly. He answered, breath still heavy from exertion. "Hello?" A woman's voice responded, firm yet excited. "This is Susu, the owner of the pharmacy. I'd like to discuss a business proposal with you regarding your supplement," Lucian agreed, and they arranged to meet the following week. When the call ended, Susu's heart was pounding with exhilaration. She could hardly wait to meet the mysterious creator behind such a masterpiece. But her excitement dimmed as the cashier hesitantly added, he's just a high school student, ma'am." For a moment, Susu was speechless. Then a spark of intrigue replaced her surprise. A student? That only made her more eager to uncover who Lucian truly was. Elsewhere, in the dream realm, Lucian's power continued to surge. Each night, he felt himself growing stronger. His current target, a level 4 martial artist zombie, was a fearsome adversary. Without hesitation, Lucian charged in, but the creature countered with lightning speed, striking his arm and numbing it instantly. The zombie let out a furious roar, lunging again in a frenzy. This time, Lucian didn't meet it head-on. He twisted aside, dodging the blow, then spun with a fierce roundhouse kick that sent the monster crashing to the ground. Before it could rise, Lucian leapt high and brought down a crushing axe kick, silencing it for good. As he peered into the lingering memories of the fallen, his view of them began to change. No longer did he see them as mindless beasts. They were once warriors, protectors of their homeland. A deep sense of respect filled his heart for these lost souls who had fought so valiantly. Lucian gave a respectful bow before turning away, his heart resolute. Determined to master the 3 newly acquired techniques, he spent the next week training relentlessly. Day after day, he pushed himself to the limit, and the results were beyond anything he'd imagined. His strength had skyrocketed to astonishing new heights. Eager to test the extent of his growth, Lucian made his way to a martial arts academy and requested access to a testing dummy. The results were staggering. His blood energy now measured at 15.632, officially elevating him to the rank of a level 2 martial artist. He faced the dummy, eyes gleaming with steely focus. With a single strike, he shattered the previous record, his battle strength registering 3,137, twice that of a typical level 2 fighter. Yet Lucian wasn't satisfied. He could sense that this was only a fragment of his true potential. Assuming his stance once more, he drew in a deep breath, his expression serious and composed. When the test concluded, he was met by the warm smile of the receptionist. She seemed almost dazzled by his quiet confidence and striking looks. As Lucian exited the school, he passed 2 young martial arts trainees chatting nearby. The girl, who happened to be the owner's daughter, was laughing lightly with the receptionist. The latter still looked a bit flustered after seeing Lucian. However, a nearby male student, eavesdropping on their conversation, snorted dismissively. To him, appearance meant nothing. Only martial strength mattered. In his eyes, Lucian, an ordinary-looking student, wasn't worth a second thought. His arrogance was fueled by the fact that he'd grown up taking expensive supplements, making him stronger than most people his age. Before he could continue boasting, the young girl smacked him lightly on the head. She scolded, her tone sharp. "Don't look down on others. You need to lose that attitude." Though embarrassed, the boy refused to back down. He grumbled. "Fine then, let's see his test results. Show me if he's really that impressive." The girl sighed, but eventually handed him the tablet. The moment they read the data, both froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Lucian's blood energy readings were off the charts, far beyond anything they had ever witnessed. The boy muttered, unable to believe what he was seeing. Is the machine broken?" But the receptionist quickly interjected. "No, it was calibrated just yesterday. The numbers are accurate." Realizing that Lucian was anything but ordinary, the trio exchanged astonished looks. They had to find out more about this mysterious young martial artist. Meanwhile, Lucian hailed a taxi. The driver, a cheerful man with an easy smile, seemed to take a liking to him. He said, "You seem like a fine young man. I should introduce you to my daughter sometime." Lucian chuckled politely. politely, thanking the driver before stepping out near the White River City Martial Artist Association. As he approached the grand building, he noticed a young man rushing out in tears. Apparently, the results from his home test hadn't matched those from the official association evaluation. Unfazed, Lucian proceeded inside and approached the reception desk. He said, "I'd like to apply for the martial artist identification test." After filling out the necessary forms, he was guided to a bustling examination hall filled with applicants of varying ages, most of them around their mid-20s. Among them stood a girl who appeared even younger than Lucian. As the line slowly advanced, an imposing figure emerged from the elevator, confidently striding past the waiting crowd. Murmurs rippled through the room. One of the female candidates stepped forward in protest. She called out, "Hey, you can't just cut the line!" But the guards quickly waved her off. They explained, "He's here for the level 3 assessment. He's allowed priority." The crowd fell silent, stunned. Level 3 martial artists were rare in White River City, and this man's reputation clearly preceded him. His blood energy measured 107, and his battle strength exceeded 10,831, a monstrous figure. He demonstrated his might with a single blow that sent powerful shockwaves rippling through the room, knocking several bystanders off balance. Turning away, the towering man's gaze landed on two figures who hadn't even flinched, Lucian among them. The boy's calm demeanor seemed to mock his display of strength. A young girl nearby frowned, whispering, "Who does he think he is? So arrogant." But her words were about to die on her lips. Lucian calmly approached the testing platform. Placing his hand upon the crystal sphere, he watched as the numbers climbed higher and higher until they stopped at 15.701. The entire hall went silent. Gasps echoed through the air. Even the towering martial artist blinked in disbelief. This quiet high schooler possessed blood energy far beyond what anyone had anticipated. Lucian then turned toward the battle strength dummy. His body lowered into a stance, aura flaring as power surged through his arm. His eyes burned with fierce determination. With the might of 1,000 suns surging through his veins, Lucian unleashed a devastating punch on the testing dummy. The impact was so fierce that it shattered the glass wall behind it, leaving the entire hall frozen in disbelief. When the readings appeared, the staff could hardly believe their eyes. Lucian's battle strength had reached a jaw-dropping 15,709. It was like witnessing raw muscle and precision energy fuse into one. Herculean strength mixed with the precision of an energy cannon. Drawing upon the essence of nature's breathing and the stellar techniques, Lucian had achieved 10 times the usual output of his blood energy. Completely immersed in the rush of combat mastery, he didn't even notice the trembling worker standing nearby. The man stammered, "Congratulations, you've passed the level 1 martial artist assessment." He blinked, checked the screen again, and his jaw dropped, and said, "Wait, no, this can't be right. You've actually passed level 2, or maybe even level 3. Utterly baffled, the worker scratched his head, muttering, "I'll report this immediately. If I'm wrong, I'll stake my career on it." Then he bolted from the room before Lucian could say a word, leaving the young man smirking in amusement. As the sound of hurried footsteps faded, Lucian turned and found the towering martial artist from earlier standing behind him. The tension in the air was palpable as their gazes locked. Lucian broke the silence with calm curiosity, saying, "Can I help you with something?" The huge man suddenly extended his hand with a grin. He said warmly, "Name's Jiao." Lucian looked him over. Jiao was easily 7 feet tall, his arms thick as tree trunks. But fear was the last thing on Lucian's mind. He grasped Jiao's hand firmly. Jiao's face lit up like he'd just met his idol. He laughed heartily, clearly thrilled by the handshake. The rest of the crowd erupted, rushing forward to do the same. Phones came out. Flashes went off. It was as if a celebrity had appeared out of nowhere. In that moment, Lucian was the center of attention. The martial arts prodigy everyone wanted to meet. But fame wasn't what he sought. Seizing a brief opening, he slipped through the crowd and sprinted off before anyone could catch up. People tried chasing him, but Lucian's reflexes were lightning fast. Within seconds, he vanished from sight. Outside the testing center, a small group of young girls waited anxiously for the results of their senior's exam. Among them stood Lucian's younger sister, who spotted him and called out, "Lucian!" He turned, eyebrows raised, inquiring, "What are you doing here?" Hands on her hips, his sister shot him a glare, asking, "I could ask you the same thing. Why were you asleep all day?" Lucian coughed lightly, scratching the back of his neck, and said, "I wasn't sleeping, I was busy." The two girls beside his sister were her classmates. Both were immediately captivated by Lucian's looks. The more outgoing one introduced herself with a bright smile. "Hi, I'm Fan. The quieter one followed softly. "And I'm Sunuo." They explained that they were there to support their senior Yan during her martial artist test. Fan couldn't help but giggle, sneaking admiring glances at Lucian the entire time. Even his sister blushed as the compliments piled on. Lucian simply chuckled and reached out to pat his sister's head. He said gently before turning to leave, "Take care, okay?" Fan watched the interaction in disbelief. She murmured, "I've never seen siblings get along like that." His sister's cheeks turned crimson. Moments later, their senior Yan stepped out of the testing center, her expression grim. The girls rushed to her side and inquired, "What happened?" Yan sighed heavily and said, "The assessment's been delayed until the afternoon. Something unexpected happened." Her voice trembled as she continued, "I ran into a guy in there. He wasn't just strong, he was a monster. About my age, but his blood energy was 15.7, and his battle power was 15,000. The group fell silent, stunned. Yan, who was usually so confident, looked completely defeated. She admitted bitterly, "Compared to him, I feel like a twig caught in a storm." The girls exchanged wide-eyed looks. One whispered, "Who is he?" Yan straightened, her tone serious, saying, "His name is Lucian." The moment the name left her lips, all eyes turned toward Lucian's sister, who looked equally shocked. Meanwhile, unaware of the commotion he'd caused, Lucian was already heading home, munching contentedly on a massive dumpling. As he walked down the familiar street, he noticed a cluster of worried mothers whispering among themselves. Apparently, a few strangers from the Red Plain Martial Arts School had been seen wandering around the neighborhood. That caught Lucian's attention. He often visited that school to measure his progress. After finishing his meal, he pulled out his phone and saw the pharmacy clerk's name flashing on the screen. He hesitated. His supplement formula had enormous potential. If handled right, it could make him a fortune. But before any deal, he needed to verify whether the pharmacy met his standards. Later, after a much-needed rest, Lucian once again found himself standing within the dream realm. The world around him shimmered with energy as he summoned I, his loyal assistant within this dimension. He commanded calmly, "Show me my life record." As Lu Shang flipped through the glowing pages before him, a grin spread across his face. His heart pounded with excitement. His future had changed. This time he wasn't doomed to die young as a low-ranked martial artist. No, in this version of his life, he had lived to the age of 87, with a wife, 3 children, and a legacy that stretched far beyond what he'd ever imagined. It wasn't a life filled with glory or fame, but compared to his original fate, perishing at 37 as a level 4 martial artist, it was a victory beyond measure. He kept scrolling, drinking in every small triumph along his path. At 18, he advanced to level 2 and earned a place at an elite Prodigy camp, where he finished among the top 20. After that, he spent 3 years at the National Martial Academy before joining the army. By the time he left the military 5 years later, he had earned the rank of lieutenant. Returning to civilian life, Lu Shang opened his own martial arts school, training others while continuously refining his craft. At 45, he achieved level 6, an accomplishment many could only dream of. He came close to reaching level 7 at 55, but never quite crossed the threshold. Still, his journey was far from wasted. He ultimately met his end during a monster invasion in the year 383, defending the people until his final breath. Clenching his fist, Lu Shang felt a surge of confidence flood through him. In only a week, he had rewritten destiny itself. Yet he knew deep down, this was only the beginning. Changing his own life wasn't enough. The true challenge lay ahead, changing humanity's fate. He couldn't afford to remain complacent. Level 7, 8, or even 9 martial artists would not be enough to face what was coming. He had to break past every known limit, ascend to level 10, and perhaps even beyond that. The road would be brutal, filled with hardship and sacrifice, but Lu Shang had already made his choice. The weight of humankind's future pressed down upon him, and he vowed not to falter. He would fight until the world itself changed. After that brief pause, the story continued. In a brightly lit office, Chairman Xiao sat behind an elegant desk, brush in hand, drawing delicate strokes across fine paper. His movements were fluid, every motion filled with focus and grace. On the other side of a video call, his colleague couldn't help but admire his brush technique. The man remarked with a chuckle, "Chairman Jiao, at this rate, you'll soon be a level 7 martial artist." But his humor quickly turned sharp. His expression darkened as he added, "If only you put the same effort into education." The jab hit Chairman Xiao hard. His hand trembled, causing his final stroke to waver. He forced an awkward smile and tried to laugh it off. He said quietly, "I've always dreamed of seeing geniuses emerge from White Lake City, but it's not easy. We have no ancient martial families here, no foundation, and our resources are scarce. Even if a prodigy appears, they eventually leave to train elsewhere." The man's face on the screen hardened. He said coldly, "Excuses. The prodigy camp is approaching. Our city hasn't sent a proper representative in years. This failure is becoming a disgrace. Do something about it." His words were firm, laced with anger and disappointment. He said before ending the call abruptly, "This time, White Lake City must not lose face." The screen went dark, and silence filled the room. Chairman Xiao's shoulders sagged as he buried his face in his hands. Frustration welled up inside him, years of unfulfilled dreams, failed attempts, and the bitter truth that he himself had stagnated at level 6. Then, just as despair began to take hold, his office door burst open. His secretary called, panting, "Chairman Xiao, you need to see this, immediately." He frowned, irritated. "Can it wait?" His secretary replied, "No, sir. An 18-year-old martial artist has just been evaluated. Level 2, with a battle strength of 15,000. Chairman Xiao's eyes widened. For the first time in years, a spark of hope flickered in his chest. The news struck Chairman Xiao like a beam of sunlight piercing through a stormy sky. After days of disappointment and pressure, this was the first spark of hope he'd felt in years. He demanded, springing to his feet, "Repeat that." The secretary held out her tablet, and he all but snatched it from her hands, eyes widening as he replayed the footage. On screen, a young man was delivering a flawless punching sequence. Each motion carried precision and fluid power. Chairman Xiao leaned forward, mesmerized. He whispered, That's the perfect flow technique." The secretary blinked, inquiring. "The what?" he explained, his tone hushed with awe. "It's a term used by top-tier martial artists. Only a handful of people in the entire world can achieve that level of harmony between body and energy. And this boy, he's doing it at 18. But that wasn't what left him speechless. Pulling up the youth's personal file, Chairman Xiao scanned the details again and again, unable to believe what he was reading. 18 years old. Blood energy level, 15.7. Battle strength, 15,000. It made no sense. Normally, a martial artist's perfect state could at best double their power. Yet this boy's strength was 10 times the standard. Chairman Xiao sat back in stunned silence, the weight of this discovery sinking in. An ordinary family, no background, and talent like this? His lips curved into an incredulous grin and said, "Unbelievable." Then laughter erupted from his chest, unrestrained and filled with relief. He declared, "A genius like this only appears once in 10 million. His excitement was infectious. Even the secretary couldn't help but smile as he spun around the room like a man reborn. Regaining his composure, he explained, "Some martial artists are born with rare gifts, natural abilities that defy logic. Some develop explosive strength, others lightning speed, or an innate connection with blood energy. This boy might be one of those rare prodigies." Determined to meet the young man in person, Chairman Xiao began preparing at once. If this talent could be nurtured properly, he might just restore White Lake City's reputation. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a girl from the Red Plains Martial Academy received word of the same youth's astonishing results. Her subordinates surrounded her with curiosity. "Why are we tracking some kid from an average family?" one of them asked. "Did he offend you or something?" She silenced them with a single glare. "Quiet. This isn't about offense, it's about opportunity." Her attention was already diverted to an incoming call on her phone. From the conversation, it became clear that the other party had also set their sights on Lucian, and the girl knew she couldn't afford to waste a single moment. The girl barked orders at the young student to scurry off and fetch lavish gifts for both a parent and a younger sibling. Though still befuddled, the student didn't dare question her authority and raced off to the shopping center without a second thought. Meanwhile, back at Lucian's humble abode, he was jolted awake by a loud knocking at his bedroom door. When he opened it, he was met with an unexpected sight. His entire family, alongside two unfamiliar faces, had gathered in the living room. Before his mother could even introduce the strangers, one of them eagerly stepped forward, introducing himself as the chairman of the esteemed White Lake Martial Artist Association. Lucian knew that such a high-ranking figure must be at least a level 6 martial artist, but he maintained his cool composure and shook the man's outstretched hand. The chairman, impressed by Lucian's unflappable demeanor, couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for the young man. Lucian's mother then introduced the other stranger, an Ai Xuan from the Red Plain Martial Arts School. The girl greeted Lucian and reminded him that they had once met during the Red Plain School event. As Lucian took his seat, the chairman launched into his speech. He had come to present Lucian with the coveted badge of a level 2 martial artist. But due to his extraordinary performance, the association had decided to pay him a pension befitting a level 3 martial artist. As if that wasn't enough, the association was also offering a staggering 1 million yuan to encourage Lucian. The news hit Lucian's family like a ton of bricks, leaving them reeling in disbelief. But Lucian himself didn't lose his cool. Though he expressed his gratitude for the support and encouragement, he wasted no time in cutting to the chase. He knew that these kinds of rewards were never handed out without a motive, so he asked the chairman straight up, "Is there anything I need to do?" The chairman was taken aback by Lucian's no-nonsense approach. He reached for an envelope in his suit pocket and produced an invitation to attend the Prodigy camp in the province. But before he could even finish his sentence, the girl in the room jumped up and began shaking her head vehemently. She said, "Sure, the Prodigy camp might have some of the most talented martial artists around, but it's also a place that destroys talent." She said, "Before you make any decision, let me tell you about someone, my senior brother." Her words carried a quiet weight, and she added, "He was once the pride of our school, a true genius who dreamed of joining the Prodigy camp. But when he returned, he wasn't the same. His spirit was broken, his will shattered. Please, Lucian, don't walk the same path." Before Lucian could respond, Chairman Xiao raised a hand, his tone firm but respectful. He said, "Your concern is understandable, but Lucian isn't like your brother. I've seen hundreds of martial artists in my life, and very few carry his potential. He's destined to walk a different road." With that, the chairman reached into his jacket and produced a sleek envelope embossed with a silver emblem, saying, "This is your invitation to the provincial Prodigy camp. Whether you accept or decline is entirely your choice. I'll respect your decision." Tense silence filled the room. The girl's worried eyes met Lucian's calm ones. Then, slowly, his lips curved into a confident smile. He said simply, "I'll go. If there's danger waiting there, then that's exactly where I need to be." The chairman's shoulders relaxed with relief, and a smile spread across his face, saying, "Excellent. You've made the right choice, Lucian. I'll come to fetch you in a few days. Until then, rest well." After the chairman departed, Lucian turned toward the young woman, who was still seated, her composure barely intact. She cleared her throat quickly, trying to hide her flustered expression, saying, "Ahem. About earlier, I actually came with another offer." Lucian raised a brow, inquiring, "Oh?" She nodded eagerly, saying, "I'd like to invite you to join the Red Plains Martial Academy as an honorary student. You'd have full access to our advanced facilities, premium training sessions, and even personal lessons from my father himself. And of course, you'd receive a generous monthly stipend." Lucian could sense her enthusiasm, but he also saw the calculation behind her smile. He thought silently, "She wants to use my name to boost her school's reputation." Still, he kept his tone polite. He said, "That's a kind offer, but unnecessary. You can say I train at your school and use your equipment. That's all true. But I don't need a title or salary." The girl blinked, momentarily thrown off. Then, refusing to give up, she said, "What if I increase the benefits? Training equipment, private tutors, even a..." Lucian shook his head gently, saying, "Being an honorary member is enough. I'm not looking for fame." Realizing he wouldn't budge, she let out a quiet sigh, saying, "Very well, but at least allow me to give you a token of appreciation." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "From now on, you'll receive a monthly allowance of 100,000 yen. Consider it our school's gratitude." Lucian gave a small nod. "Thank you." When she and her attendants finally left, Lucian's family remained in stunned silence. His mother clutched his hand tightly, her eyes wet with disbelief. She whispered, "Lucian, is this really happening?" He smiled softly, turning her hand over and tracing the hardened lines of her palm. a map of years spent working through exhaustion and sacrifice. He said gently, "It's real, Mother. And from now on, you won't have to work another night shift. Father won't have to break his back at the factory. I'll handle everything." His parents exchanged a look of quiet pride, their hearts swelling with relief. For the first time, they could breathe easy. Elsewhere in the city, chaos brewed in a pharmacy's back office. The owner, a sharp-eyed woman in a white coat, paced back and forth, gnawing on her nails. She muttered, "Who is he? That mysterious man who left behind that supplement formula. I can't find him anywhere." Stacks of reports littered her desk, each one confirming the same impossible truth. The supplement's results were unlike anything on record. It was several times stronger than top-tier level 2 tonics, and even surpassed some level 3s. And the most shocking part? 0 side effects. She slammed her palm on the desk in frustration, saying, "This could revolutionize the entire market. I could make millions if only I could find him." "Boss!" the clerk suddenly shouted, pointing at the television. She snapped, inquiring, "What is it now?" But when her eyes landed on the screen, her irritation melted into astonishment. There, on the news, was the face of the mysterious creator, an 18-year-old martial artist from White Lake City. The owner froze for a moment, then broke into an incredulous laugh, saying, "An 18-year-old prodigy. Of course it's him." Later that night, beneath the pale glow of the moon, a lone figure moved swiftly through the dense forests of Guhu Mountain. The wind whispered through the trees as Lucian bounded over jagged rocks and roots, his satchel slung tightly over his shoulder. Lucian moved swiftly through the rugged mountain path, his every step guided by the rhythm of the stellar flow technique. With each pulse of starlight energy running through his veins, his speed and agility surged to new heights. The cold mountain air burned in his lungs, yet his determination blazed even brighter. Reaching the summit, Lucian stopped for a moment, inhaling deeply as he began the nature-breathing method. The fresh energy of the mountain poured into him like a living current, mending the fatigue in his muscles. Then, suddenly, a rush of power erupted from within. His aura flared, shimmering like molten gold. He had done it. He'd shattered the bottleneck once again. Power coursed through him, wild and exhilarating, like a storm barely contained. Lucian had climbed this mountain for a purpose. He was seeking the rarest herbs, ancient potent plants that could serve as key ingredients for his new supplement. Many of them had been lost to time, their properties forgotten by modern alchemists. Moving deeper into the wilderness, he carefully gathered glowing roots and strange blossoms, sealing them safely within his satchel. Hours later, he reached the mountain's base where a man in a green shirt and wide-brimmed hat was waiting beside a basket of herbs. The man grinned slyly, revealing yellowed teeth. He said, his tone greasy, "All here, just like you asked." Lucian inspected the herbs closely. They were fresh, perfectly so. He nodded in approval and reached into his pocket to pay. But before the coins left his hand, the merchant's expression shifted. The man said, his grin widening as several rough-looking men emerged from the trees behind him. "Actually, the price just doubled. If you want the rest, you'll pay triple. My mountain, my rules." Lucian's gaze turned cold. The bandits circled him, laughing and cracking their knuckles. One sneered, "What's wrong, kid? Scared?" Lucian tilted his head slightly, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Without a word, he picked up a large boulder beside him and clenched his hand. The rock exploded into dust. The laughter died instantly. The men froze, their bravado dissolving into terror as they stared at the fragments raining to the ground. Lucian's calm, razor-sharp gaze swept over them. He asked quietly, "Still want to continue?" Their leader dropped to his knees first, followed by the others, stammering apologies and begging for mercy. One even blurted out, "Big brother, no daddy." "We didn't mean it." Lucian sighed, shaking his head with a wry smile. He said, "Keep your herbs. Consider it payment for the lesson." He picked up the basket and turned to leave, the group bowing repeatedly behind him, vowing to give up their criminal ways forever. As dawn painted the sky gold, Lucian reached his destination, the legendary Prodigy camp. The sprawling compound resembled a fortress, filled with young martial artists in crisp uniforms. Most wore gleaming badges on their chests, while Lucian's remained untouched, still sitting back home in its display case. A stern-looking officer approached, arms crossed. He demanded, "Who are you? Where's your badge?" He replied calmly, "Lucian, referred by the White Lake Association's chairman." Whispers rippled through the crowd, mocking voices calling him a country bumpkin, a fake. The officer checked his tablet and immediately straightened his posture and said, "Ah, my apologies, Mr. Lucian. This way, please." He led Lucian through a maze of corridors until they arrived before a massive steel door. Inside, dozens of candidates stood waiting, each buzzing with nervous energy. Then, the heavy doors sealed shut behind them. A commanding voice echoed from the ceiling. "The test begins now. Your task is simple. Find the exit." Before anyone could react, the floor vanished beneath their feet. The world spun in chaos as they plummeted into the darkness below. Some managed to land on their feet with practiced grace. Others crashed into the hard ground with painful groans. Lucian landed smoothly, scanning the dim hallway that stretched endlessly ahead. His senses sharpened, reading every flicker of movement, every faint vibration. Not far away, a red-haired candidate in a crimson coat, Lin, smirked as he caught sight of Lucian. He sneered. Well, well, looks like the country boy made it after all. Lucian didn't respond. His gaze remained cold and steady, already calculating his next move. The real test had just begun. Tension rippled through the group like static. At the center of it stood Lin, a red-coated loudmouth who clearly loved the sound of his own voice. Seeing the nervous faces around him, he pounced on the chance to take control. Lin barked, his tone sharp. "Everyone from Qingyuan City, gather up! Let's not waste time listening to outsiders." He jabbed a finger toward Lucian, sneering. "You, country boy, you'll go first. Be our scout. If you die, we'll know where the traps are." Lucian chuckled softly, his calm demeanor completely unshaken. He stepped closer, his shadow overlapping Lin's. He said, shoving Lin lightly aside with a smirk. "You talk too much. I don't take orders from wannabes. I walk alone." The corner of his lips curled into a faint grin, saying, "Gigachads don't do teamwork," he added mockingly. "Leave the group hugging to cowards." Lin's face went crimson, his pride visibly cracking. He growled, I'll make you regret that." But before he could make good on his threat, fate answered for him. A soft click echoed beneath Lucian's boot. From deep within the walls, a mechanical rumble built like an oncoming storm. Then, dozens of enormous crimson spheres tumbled from above, slamming into the ground. The spheres unfolded, transforming into humanoid machines, towering constructs armed with glowing blades and heavy plating. The crowd froze. Each robot's power signature radiated a dangerous pressure, easily beyond what a level 1 martial artist could handle. Lin's voice trembled as he forced a laugh. He said, "Relax, they're just training bots." Lucian didn't respond. One of the machines lunged at him, its steel fist tearing through the air. Lucian raised his hand and stopped the punch effortlessly, his expression bored. He muttered, "That's all?" A single twist of his wrist, and crack! The robot's arm came apart in a shower of sparks. Lucian moved like a blur, dismantling one machine after another until the air sizzled with electricity and the scent of scorched metal. Meanwhile, Lin tried to save face. He scoffed, puffing his chest as he strutted toward another robot, saying, "See? Just junk bots. Anyone could do that." The others watched in disbelief. He leapt high, spinning in midair, and kicked the robot square in the head. For a brief, glorious second, it actually worked. The machine's head snapped loose. Lin landed with a triumphant grin, about to boast, and then a massive metal fist slammed into him from the side. He flew across the hall like a rag doll, slamming into the wall. The sound of cracking bone filled the air. Blood dripped from his lips as he groaned, half-conscious. "Oh, okay, maybe, not level 1. The group helped him up, staring wide-eyed at Lucian, who now stood surrounded by heaps of shattered robots. He didn't even look winded. He sighed, brushing metal dust off his sleeve, saying, "Too easy." Outside the test chamber, a technician monitoring the feed rubbed his eyes in disbelief. He muttered, "The system must be malfunctioning, right?" But before he could finish, the door behind him slid open, revealing Lucian stepping out of the smoking hallway, flames dancing behind him. The worker froze. Lucian's sharp gaze flicked toward him, and in that instant, the man understood. This was no ordinary examinee. Lucian clenched his fist, the air itself trembling with power. He said coolly, "You're the proctor for stage 2, aren't you?" Then, without warning, he struck, a flash of energy bursting down the corridor. Inside the command center, 2 officers were watching the live feed. A beautiful woman in sleek black stockings sat before the monitors, her fingers drumming impatiently against the console. Beside her, a green-haired man strolled in, holding a steaming mug of coffee. He said casually, "Morning, Dongjing." Her glare could have frozen lava. She snapped, "It's Lieutenant Colonel Dongjing Shui to you, Major Chen Xiaojun." Chen chuckled awkwardly, settling into the chair beside her, saying, "Relax, Lieutenant Colonel. I was just wondering how our Prodigy camp's doing. Any real talents this year?" Dongjing Shui sighed, rubbing her temples. "Barely 8, who meet the minimum standard," she said wearily. "Nothing remarkable so far." Then, one monitor caught her eye, a young woman on the battlefield, moving with astonishing grace and power. Dong murmured, "Except her. 18, spirit type, nearly at level 2. At least someone promising." Chen smiled, raising his cup, saying, "Hey, that's something to toast to." But before he could take a sip, his eyes widened. His hand trembled, coffee spilling over his uniform as he stared at another screen. Dong turned sharply, inquiring, "What now?" Her gaze followed his, and her jaw dropped. The screen showed Lucian standing amidst the wreckage of the test chamber, surrounded by burning metal and smoke, the shattered remains of 24 robots lying at his feet. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Dong Jingshui whispered, "Who the hell is that?" Meanwhile, in exam room 7, Ling emerged victorious over the final training puppet. She fatally sensed a dangerous presence emanating from the passage across from her. As she opened the door to proceed with the test, she was suddenly startled. The staff members stood there holding shields and weapons, fully armed, and staring intently at the exit of another passage. Ling released her psychic power, allowing her to see through the walls. Behind the walls, she witnessed 2 individuals engaged in combat. However, the adversaries were not robots, but humans. As she attempted to closely observe the identity of one of the combatants, immense and overwhelming pressure suddenly engulfed her, as if she were being confronted by a demon itself. Beads of sweat dripped down her forehead. Startled, she took a few steps back, hastily retreating to her original passage and tightly closing the door. She sat on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. This palpable sense of fear was truly terrifying. Lieutenant Colonel Dong Ching Shu, we will now refer to her as Snowy, and Major Qin Xiaodun hurriedly arrived at the scene. Major Qin inquired about the situation inside, only to learn that the cameras had been destroyed, leaving the situation unclear. Furthermore, communication with the supervising personnel had been lost for a while. Major Qin immediately instructed the staff to prepare a report containing information on everyone inside the passage. However, Snowy waved it off, saying it wasn't necessary. Just then, cracks appeared on the sturdy walls, and suddenly Liu Sheng burst through the door. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they realized it was a student. In Liu Sheng's hands, they saw him carrying someone. He released the invigilator and introduced himself as Liu Sheng from Whitewater City. Major Qin burst into laughter and expressed his satisfaction upon seeing Liu Sheng. He remarked how Liu Sheng managed to destroy such expensive training puppets and even beat up the invigilator. Feeling awkward, Liu Sheng explained that it was all a misunderstanding. He believed it was part of the assessment and knew the invigilator was strong, but he couldn't hold back. Snowy glanced at Liu Sheng and suddenly released her psychic power. Hundreds of violet threads flew toward him. Liu Sheng's expression remained unchanged. He didn't move. The threads passed through his body. Snowy closed her eyes, as if she had obtained the answer she sought. She took a deep breath and congratulated Liu Sheng on passing the assessment, instructing him to go rest. After the staff escorted him away, the 2 instructors analyzed the report reports and recordings. The data revealed that Liu Sheng's blood energy level was only 15, but his combat strength reached an astonishing 15,000. It was unbelievable. Just a moment ago, Snowy attempted to probe him with her psychic power, yet she didn't perceive anything, and Liu Sheng showed no reaction either. Qin asked how they should handle this anomaly. Snowy remained silent for a moment and then said, "The data may not be accurate. For now, consider Liu Sheng a top seed alongside Ling." A faint smile appeared on her lips. "It seems this camp just became interesting." Liu Sheng had sensed Snowy's probing earlier. He could feel that her psychic power was more than 5 times stronger than his own. So he immediately retracted his ability, unsure if he had been detected. At that moment, his stomach growled loudly. The staff members awkwardly smiled and decided to take him to the cafeteria for a meal. Liu Sheng asked about the portion size. The staff member smiled and said, "For your first meal, it's unlimited." Upon entering the cafeteria, Liu Sheng saw tables full of delicious food. Within minutes, he devoured dozens of dishes. He then requested another 5 dishes, then 10 more. The staff members were astonished by his appetite. A girl approached him carrying a tray of food. She introduced herself as Yang, also a student from Whitewater City. They had taken the assessment together. Liu Sheng assumed she came to join him for the free meal and told her the food was unlimited. Yang gritted her teeth. "No wonder you don't have a girlfriend," she thought. Liu Sheng asked about the training camp system. Yang explained that points were the currency here, used to exchange for resources, equipment usage, instructor guidance, supplements, and even meals. She held up 3 fingers and said that currently only 3 people had points. 1. Chao Yong, second-level talent, specializes in defense. Second-level talent, specializes in speed. 3rd, Ling, rare awakened psychic talent, considered the strongest participant. Just then, Ling walked by carrying her meal. Her eyes met Liu Sheng's and she almost spilled her soup before quickly leaving. Yang continued speaking, saying there were rumors of a 4th person who destroyed all the training puppets with bare hands and sent the invigilator to the hospital. She laughed, convinced such a lunatic couldn't exist. Liu Sheng choked on his water. Before long, staff members arrived and informed him that due to the destruction of 18 training puppets and the injured instructor, an investigation was required. Liu Sheng asked if he could pack his food. The instructor hesitantly agreed. Everyone in the cafeteria was stunned. The rumor was true. In the command room, Liu Sheng saw Snowy again. Her face was expressionless as she informed him, "This time you have depleted half a year's budget for the training camp." Liu Sheng's body trembled. He thought she was going to demand compensation. Snowy continued, "Each training puppet costs tens of millions, and the ones you destroyed are beyond repair. However, you don't need to compensate. It isn't entirely your fault." Liu Sheng exhaled in relief. Just then the door opened, and Qin entered accompanied by 3 young candidates, the ones who had successfully passed the assessment. Ling was startled when she saw Liu Sheng again. The other 2, one expressionless, the other visibly displeased, also looked at him. Snowy congratulated all 4 and handed each of them a points card. The 3 others received gold cards with 100 points each. Liu Sheng received a white card. Assuming it was empty, he flipped it over and read the usage rules on the back. Meal, 5 points. 1 hour in the training room, 10 points. Guidance from an instructor, 30 points. Training with the head instructor, Snowy, 100 points. Liu Sheng felt disappointed. If meals were only 5 points, then eating meat was the best deal. Qin suddenly fell off his chair and shouted, "That's a card worth 1,000 points." If Snowy had not intervened, Liu Sheng would have had to pay back the cost of the damage, an insane amount. When Chao Yong and Meng Jin heard this, they were stunned. Chao Yong sneered, "So the training camp plays favorites. I thought everything here depended on strength." Meng Jin smirked in agreement. Ling, clutching her card, said softly, "Do you even know what he did?" Chao Yong burst into laughter, insinuating bribery and favoritism. He doubted Liu Sheng's strength, pointing out his low blood energy level. Chao Yong tore open his shirt, revealing a muscular physique, and activated his defensive talent. He locked eyes with Liu Sheng. "Prove it." Liu Sheng sighed. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Ignoring the warning, Chao Yong charged. Liu Sheng raised one finger, a simple flick. A blinding arc of force burst forth. Boom. Chao Yong flew backward, smashing into the thick command room wall, leaving a giant hole before before collapsing unconscious. The room fell silent. Liu Sheng casually asked, "Do I need to compensate for the wall?" He attacked first. Even Snowy and Chin were speechless, though they had expected something like this. Liu Sheng asked if he could leave. Snowy stopped him, asking about his training plans. "You can use your points to request personal guidance from me." Liu Sheng politely declined. "Thank you, but I have something more important to do." Everyone wondered what could possibly be more important than training with the head instructor. Liu Sheng walked away, then stopped, turned back with a serious expression, and declared, "I'm going back to sleep." Everyone froze. Chin burst into laughter. Snowy rubbed her temples, regretting everything. Through the surveillance cameras, they watched Liu Sheng walk into his dorm and immediately go to sleep. Snowy and Chin exchanged looks. His behavior reminded them of someone from their past, a prodigy named Xiong Peng, whose incredible physical talent once crushed everyone in the camp. But such individuals never lasted long. Strength alone is not everything. Skills, experience, observation, judgment, those determine who endures. Snowy believed that Liu Sheng might end up the same way, a fleeting genius. In the dream world, Liu Sheng faced a gigantic muscular zombie. The zombie swung its colossal fist, but Liu Sheng blocked it with both hands. Grabbing a spear from the ground, he thrust it into the zombie's knee and immobilized it. Stellar technique activated. Energy surged through his arm. He crushed the zombie's skull. Liu Sheng sensed the zombie had once been a level 6 martial artist, equivalent to Chairman Xiao. Without his psychic power, he would have died. Skills, techniques, combat experience, these were the true treasures of the dream world. A person cannot master everything, but Liu Sheng was unlike anyone else. He stood on the shoulders of countless predecessors. He could achieve perfection. He shifted into the realm of consciousness to refine his psychic power. As he touched the core of his mind, energy surged violently. It felt as if his head would explode. Something ruptured. He broke through. He summoned the AI to check if his future had changed. A new life record appeared. Liu Sheng, age 65, broke through to level 7 martial artist. Lifespan, 156 years. Rank, Major General. Married. He asked if he could now access more advanced martial arts techniques. The AI responded by granting advanced versions of the 3 techniques he already learned, plus another technique, the Divine Pluto technique, created by an 11th level martial artist, Duan Yifeng. This technique wasn't for physical combat, it was for psychic cultivators. It allowed the user to construct a second body inside their own using psychic power. Stage 1. Strengthen internal organs, increasing blood energy level. Exactly what Liu Sheng needed. Even a genius like Duan Yifeng couldn't prevent humanity's downfall. Liu Sheng clenched his fists. He would change history. 1 month passed. Inside the telekinesis chamber, Ling stood at the center. Golden orbs shot toward her from every direction. Eyes closed, she sensed them through flashes of purple light inside her consciousness. Her psychic power intercepted every orb with precision. Her star dart technique. Snowy entered, proud. When you can control 6 star darts effortlessly, you will officially become a level 1 psychic master. Ling bowed gratefully, but Snowy sensed something wrong. Trauma. Ling suddenly trembled, remembering those eyes, the terrifying pressure from Liu Sheng. Nightmares plagued her every night. Snowy gave the solution. Find the person who traumatized you. Defeat him or kill him. Ling hesitated, then remembered Liu Sheng had been sleeping for an entire month. If he stagnated, maybe she could win. Snowy and Chin discussed him outside. Meals delivered every day, always asleep. A lost cause, Chin joked. Snowy felt anger and disappointment. Yang was cleaning a training room when a lively girl approached and started chatting. The girl complained she had to skip meals to save points. She noticed Yang's connection to Liu Sheng. Yang was confused by his sudden change, from monster-level talent to sleeping all day. The girl scoffed, "People with talent shine early, then get surpassed." Maybe he gave up. Yang didn't believe that. An uproar echoed outside. Chao Yong was attempting quadruple gravity. Yang rushed to see. Chao Yong braced himself, his skin taking on a stone-like texture lined with golden lightning. He endured triple gravity for over 4 minutes. People cheered as he emerged, exhausted but triumphant. He smirked. He thought about Liu Sheng. His henchmen mocked Liu Sheng for sleeping his life away. Just then, a blur of motion. Liu Sheng walked past them toward the gravity gravity chamber. Chao Yong taunted him. Ignoring the ridicule, Liu Sheng thought only about how many points he had spent on meals. He decided to start with 3 hours at level 2 gravity. Before the door closed, Liu Sheng looked at Chao Yong and said, "It's been a month. Time to test my progress." Chao Yong mocked him. "You think sleeping makes you stronger?" The chamber sealed. Minutes passed. Only silence. Then, sonic booms erupted from inside the chamber. Liu Sheng's kicks and punches shook the ground. He enjoyed the pressure and walked toward the control panel. Chao Yong grinned, thinking Liu Sheng was giving up. A sharp beep resounded. Everyone froze. Liu Sheng had increased the gravity from 2 times to 4 times. Slowly, he knelt on one knee. Onlookers thought he reached his limit. Then Liu Sheng raised 2 fingers. As Ling made her way toward her dormitory, she noticed a crowd gathered near the gravity chamber. Intrigued by the commotion, she approached the onlookers, only to find their jaws hanging open in disbelief. Ling's gaze shifted toward the chamber's glass, where she witnessed an astonishing sight. Liu Sheng effortlessly performing a handstand on 2 fingers under the daunting 4 times gravity. Chao Yong, overwhelmed by a million questions flooding his mind, collapsed to the ground in shock. He struggled to comprehend how Liu Sheng had attained such incredible strength. Clenching his teeth and holding back tears of frustration, Chao Yong raised his hands in disbelief, his mind filled with confusion. After all, hadn't Liu Sheng been sleeping for over a month? Meanwhile, Liu Sheng appeared unfazed by the intensified gravity. As he grew more accustomed to its force, he decided to push himself further, increasing it to 5 times and adopting the earth-breathing technique. News of Liu Sheng's remarkable feat spread like wildfire, drawing more and more people to the gravity chamber. Even Sassy hurriedly made his way toward the scene. Among the growing crowd was Yan, along with numerous others. Liu Sheng deemed the 5 times gravity to be meeting his training standards, but he needed more pressure, more intensity that would push him to his absolute limits. With a resolute stride, Liu Sheng approached the control panel once again, his actions drawing the attention and curiosity of the crowd. Many believed that Liu Sheng had reached his limit, but to their astonishment, Liu Sheng's hand descended upon the control panel, unhesitatingly hammering the green button 2 more times. Snowy sat frustrated in the control room, disheartened by the increasing number of students quitting the camp. In just a month, numerous participants had already left, unable to withstand the challenges presented. Zien, sensing her distress, handed her a cold and refreshing beverage, offering words of solace. "They are just spoiled brats. It's only natural for some to falter," he remarked. "If they can't handle the challenges here, how can they face the real monsters on the battlefield?" He added that the overall quality of this year's students was quite impressive. As Zien's eyes drifted toward the screen, his expression suddenly changed. Something remarkable had occurred. The gravity chamber record had been shattered. Snowy's curiosity was piqued, and she cast her gaze toward the screen, assuming it would be Chao Yong who had achieved this feat. However, to her utter surprise, it was Liu Sheng attempting an astounding 8 times gravity. The shock of this revelation caused Snowy to inadvertently shatter the glass in her hands. Utilizing her ability to control liquids and shattered glass, she prevented the fragments from falling to the ground. Both Snowy and Zien were left dumbfounded, unsure of what was happening. But one thing became clear. Liu Sheng was the person they were looking for. Liu Sheng took a deep breath and unleashed the power of the divine Pluto technique. Instantly, he felt a surge of psychic energy coursing through his veins, akin to a vibrant purple thread creating another heart within his body. As this ethereal heart merged with his own, his entire body pulsed with purple energy, flowing harmoniously throughout every inch of him. As Liu Sheng activated the divine Pluto technique, his body felt lighter, as if the burdens of gravity had been lifted. Liu Sheng took a few steps forward, ready to push himself to his true limits. However, as his fingers made contact with the control panel, the glass walls of the chamber began to crack under the immense pressure that emanated within the chamber. Spectators felt the sudden weight of this force bearing down upon them, compelling them to kneel and rendering them unable to lift their heads. Inside the chamber, Liu Sheng found himself almost glued to the ground, the floor beneath him shattering into pieces. The gravity intensified, causing his bones to tremble and his his blood to freeze. The person that yearns for a change of the future, who brings hope to humanity, isn't the one who practices the finest martial arts or possesses boundless resources. It is the person who possesses the relentless drive to push themselves to the very limits of their capabilities. Summoning every ounce of strength within him, Liu Sheng rose to his feet. The sheer force of his ascent shattered the ground beneath him, setting off a breathtaking shockwave that reverberated throughout the chamber. Outside the chamber, onlookers found themselves unable to withstand the pressure, their heads bowed low, unable to move a single muscle. Yan gazed upon Liu Sheng, her mind filled with awe and admiration. Liu Sheng had returned. As the door to the gravity chamber swung open, a hushed silence fell upon the onlookers, who instinctively made way for Liu Sheng. Their fear rendered them speechless, their eyes filled with a mixture of awe and reverence. Amidst the crowd, a girl stepped forward, her cheeks flushed. She handed Liu Sheng a towel. Liu Sheng graciously accepted the towel, expressing his gratitude with a smile. The girl high-fived her friend, sharing a moment of excitement. Now outside the chamber, Liu Sheng checked his points balance, discovering that he had been rewarded for breaking the gravity chamber record. His new balance stood at an impressive 4,335 points, a stark contrast to the majority of candidates who had single-digit scores. Liu Sheng was bawling with 4 digits. A satisfied smile spread across his face. He knew that with his substantial points, he could enjoy another lavish feast. And so, the onlookers, inspired by his triumph, followed in pursuit. Yan, standing among the crowd, looked on in awe. The figure before her, Liu Sheng, was like a king reigning supreme above everyone else. Liu Sheng didn't head toward the cafeteria as expected. Instead, he made his way to the agility room. Inside the dimly lit room, Meng Jin showcased his incredible speed and agility, effortlessly evading a barrage of laser beams. However, a laser grazed his arm, leaving a small mark. Undeterred, he completed the second stage with an 87 score. The system promptly congratulated him, highlighting that he had surpassed more than half of all martial artists. This achievement would be showcased on the global terminal of the prestigious Martial Arts Association for everyone to witness. The score sucked ass, but Meng Jin still took immense pride in his score. After all, he believed he was already ahead of the pack due to his natural talent and personal training under the renowned Major Xian. With a sense of anticipation, Meng Jin exited the room, expecting a chorus of applause and words of praise. However, what awaited him was a haunting silence. The absence of any reaction or acknowledgement left him bewildered and disheartened. He glanced over to the opposite side, where a crowd of people had gathered, including the 2 instructors. Determined to find out what was happening, he hurriedly approached one of the spectators, grabbing the man's shoulder and inquiring about the commotion. The man, visibly annoyed by the interruption, reluctantly responded that he was watching Liu Sheng. He burst out in laughter, saying, "What? Y'all expecting applause for a sloth that's been sleeping for a month?" The man narrowed his eyes. Meng Jin was not going to get away with his disrespect. The room suddenly turned crimson, signaling that all the laser launchers had been activated at full power. In the midst of the chaos, Liu Sheng found himself standing alone in the center of the room, surrounded by a mesmerizing array of thousands of laser beams. Unleashing his latent psychic powers, Liu Sheng tapped into his heightened intuition, allowing him to anticipate the trajectory of each laser attack. He effortlessly dodged the deadly beams, moving with an elegance and grace that seemed almost otherworldly. After realizing that this was Liu Sheng's first time entering the agility room, and that he had broken the 10 times gravity record before arriving here, Meng Jin found himself collapsing to the ground, his body and soul filled with a strange mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. How was it possible for someone to emerge so strong after spending a month sleeping? Meng Jin couldn't help but feel invisible as the attention of everyone in the room remained fixed solely on Liu Sheng. Snowy, with her keen observation, couldn't believe that it was Liu Sheng's first time in the agility room. His movements were too precise, almost as if he could predict the attacks before they even happened. Intrigued, Snowy gestured discreetly, conjuring a small purple orb in her hands. Xian caught sight of Snowy's actions and glanced over, but Snowy quickly dismissed the orb. She had already tested Liu Sheng earlier and confirmed he didn't have any psychic power. Moments later, Liu Sheng successfully cleared Stage 2 and advanced to Stage 3. A breathtaking sight awaited him as thousands of golden balls were launched simultaneously simultaneously, each bouncing off the floor and changing direction unpredictably. Liu Sheng knew he needed to step up his game. Xian's keen eyes couldn't help but recognize that Liu Sheng had reached the nuanced level in his agility technique. Even among seasoned level 4 and level 5 veterans on the battlefield, only a few could attain such mastery. Xian himself had achieved the nuanced level at the age of 22, and Snowy had reached it at the age of 25. Xian was well aware that he himself was a speed talent, but Liu Sheng, at the young age of 18, showcased an exceptional level of agility, despite not being a speed-talented martial artist. Liu Sheng found himself facing a daunting challenge as he reached the 15-second mark in Stage 3. Using his psychic power alone to predict the attacks was becoming increasingly difficult. He swiftly switched his breathing technique to the wind breathing technique. As he tapped into the power of the wind, a surge of speed coursed through his veins, propelling him forward with such astonishing velocity that most onlookers couldn't even track his movements with their naked eyes. In a remarkable display of skill, Liu Sheng conquered Stage 3 in a matter of moments. Xian, having witnessed Liu Sheng's impressive feat, turned his back and began to walk away, thinking this was Liu Sheng's limit. But Snowy said no. As Xian turned back, the daunting Stage 4 of the challenge commenced. A peculiar machine emerged from the floor and ascended into the air. Liu Sheng, momentarily caught off guard, suddenly found himself confronted by over a dozen tiny spears launching upward, creating a dense web of laser beams descending from above. Within seconds, Liu Sheng was ensnared, trapped inside the intricate network. However, a surge of otherworldly energy emanated from Liu Sheng's body as he activated his divine Pluto technique. With this powerful ability, he created an invisible barrier encompassing him, forming a protective sphere. Within this sphere, time seemed to come to a standstill. Those knowledgeable in psychic abilities referred to this phenomenon as time sense, where the perception of time is altered or suspended. Snowy was left utterly speechless, witnessing Liu Sheng achieve a feat that typically only level 3 psychic masters could accomplish. The glass barrier in front of them began to crack and ultimately shattered into pieces. A smile crept onto Snowy's face. Eager to put him to the test, Snowy tapped into her own psychic abilities, causing vibrant purple lines to radiate from her body. These lines coalesced into a giant version of herself, with even her features enlarged. Xian, filled with astonishment, watched the scene unfold before him. Snowy had summoned her formidable doppelganger into the chamber, intending to gauge Liu Sheng's abilities. However, Liu Sheng's attention swiftly shifted toward the doppelganger. With a composed demeanor, he swung his arms skillfully, and in an instant, Snowy's doppelganger dissipated into thin air. The impact of this realization hit Snowy like a hammer to the head, leaving her breathless.